Okay. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that we are. This is indeed live. We're live, right?
Yep.
Okay. I can't see it. Oh, there we go. I just got a notification. Okay. Good. All right. Welcome to the Freedom Haven podcast. My name is Alexander, and the man
And
to my the man with me is Tony. I'll be hosting this podcast about the Freedom Haven project, or more specifically, the new Liberty vessel. Anyways, let's get right on to it. Tony, tell us about the latest developments.
we're preparing for PorkFest. We got the business cards. We're looking on the slides and the presentation. Um, I've been practicing my pancake making ability. I actually every Saturday I've been making pancakes to try to see how much throughput I can put as much as fast possible, because I want to be able to feed as many people as quickly as possible, so you can get a lot of people wanting to come. And I think I'll do about 300 pancakes in the 2 hours from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every day. And the idea is to get everyone to want to come and visit the Freedom Haven Project hub and get to know me, have me get to know them, and maybe find out a little more about the Freedom Haven Project.
Yeah.
So,
do you imagine this will be a success? I will. You seem very motivated to to get this thing
well,
going.
I sure hope it's a success. I'm going all in, and it's consumed my life for the last 2 months, getting ready for PorkFest, and
Yeah.
it'll consume my whole time out there. And I hope that and even if it isn't a success, I am looking forward to meeting all those libertarians out there, because libertarians are awesome.
Yeah. All right. Now, what else do we have? So we have PorkFest coming. Wait, we didn't. We actually discussed it in the last podcast, the last episode of podcast. We actually discussed about this stuff quite a bit. Um, so what do we have? Apart from the pancake making, I think we discussed some things more. Well, we still have the flag. We have the flag project, which you also advertised on Facebook, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and asking people what they think about the flag. Do they want to propose new designs, and just have a discussion going?
Yeah.
We created the flag initially about 4 years ago, and some people like it, some people don't like it, and now the group's grown. It's time for a discussion if people want to propose new designs for it. Now, the
Okay.
flag and the logo are two different things. The logo is what you see almost everywhere, and the flag isn't used very much. That'll be basically what our flag would be if we're ever accepted as a nation,
Okay.
which is the goal.
Yeah. Oh my God, I actually forgot what was the thing we were actually discussing about right a bit before. Uh, and you said save it for the video. I for the love of me can't remember. In fact,
You made a flag. You wanted to show us the
no,
flag you made?
not the flag, not the flag I made. It's not. It's a project in the making right now. What was it? It was right. Um, we could also talk about the PorkFest, what your expectations are, since if I remember correctly, there was an equivalency stating um, not a talk uh,
Organization.
not an
The Seasteading
organization. It
Institute.
was they did something like a lecture, where you had
Mm-hmm.
people listening about it. I think it was in either in 2014 or 2018. Between that period, is where I saw the video, and it was probably from the Seasteading Institute, right?
Yep.
So these guys actually went and did a well, I'll call it a lecture. Because I can't, my vocabulary is failing me right now. So they did do a presentation on seasteading. So what exactly are your plans? Uh, when you're going there, given that some of the audience might have already, uh, you know, been informed regarding seasteads,
Yeah,
or at least partially informed.
they may know a lot about seasteads, and actually, the Seasteading Institute itself isn't promoting any particular seasteading project. They actually they are a nonprofit think tank that promotes all seasteading projects. That their goal is to try to help seasteading become a reality. And seasteading is more of a wide. It started with based on libertarian ideas, but it also caters to people who just like living on the ocean. And all the current projects that I'm aware of, the current active projects, all
You weren't aware of
exist.
this one. You weren't aware of the one that they show you, but yeah, go
Oh,
on. Sorry, I cut you.
Go ahead and mention that one. That's we can talk about that one really quick.
So yeah, I was scrounging through the libertarian Reddit, and I found a project called Arctide that looks quite a lot like the thing Tony is. It's like the hexagon Tony's developing right now, the concrete block. Could you remind me of what you're calling it?
Oh, just a platform.
The platform.
It's and that's a prototype. That's a prototype it has a potential of being cheaper, and you can own it forever instead of renting it, which is nice. But it's very very prototype. So until we get it has potential, but it's not something that is currently being made today. And anything that's not being made today is, could be good, could be bad. Hopefully it's good.
Yeah. So these guys from Arctide, Tony wasn't aware of their existence. I think I spotted them, but never actually, when I was doing my seasteading hunting on who actually makes these things, and before I actually talked to Tony, I think I spotted these guys. But I'm not. I'll just mention it anyway. So Tony wasn't aware, and and now he is aware. We're not sure about the cost, but it looks promising, and the more the merrier. In making that stuff, new parties are entering is always welcome. So
Definitely.
Let's see what they can make. They seem to know what they're doing. Time will tell. So check them out if you wish. Anyways, back to the question.
It's Tony, arctide.org, right? Is that right?
Arctide with a K, like Noah's Ark.
Yeah. ARKTIDE.org. And they seem to be more about just creating floating houseboats, but houseboats that can survive on harbors or a little more rough oceans. I don't know yet if they can survive outside the exclusive economic zone or not, if they would be something. But in Freedom Haven, we hope to have all kinds of different projects and vessels that are there. We're working on the new Liberty vessel as the initial vessel that would help be the seed to start the growth of the city. But once that's there, we're going to have all kinds of different variations.
It's basically a springboard.
Yeah, but Arctide. We also mentioned since Arctide we couldn't find the price on the website, and any seasteading project or any kind of project, they're expensive. And if they don't mention the site up front, mention the price up front, then it's probably more than we're thinking of. You mentioned that in the quiz they had a slider going
from probably $1 million. It was, and how much do you expect? Would you willing to pay or expect this thing to cost? And the 85,000 was very slow margin. That's what I personally inputted. Not that I think these are going to be cheap. It's what I was expecting. I'm not an expert in these kinds of structures on what exactly they will cost. I'm not expecting it to be cheap. But it's my intrinsic value on the thing that was presented to me.
Yeah, and we're always hoping to find something that's cheaper that can do the job and create housing that is cheaper and it can survive on high seas outside the exclusive economic zone. Because if you're not outside the exclusive economic zone, then you won't get the freedom you're looking for. And
Say goodbye to your freedoms.
exactly, and all the seasteading projects on the Seasteading Institute website, of which Freedom Haven is also listed, and also Ocean Builders and so forth. And they have some great designs, great projects out there. But as far as I'm aware, the only active seasteading project that's listed on seasteading.org or Seasteading Institute, which is the main company that they're the main think tank that supports and encourages various seasteading projects. What sets Freedom Haven apart is we're the only one that's planning to build. From day one, we're planning to be outside the exclusive economic zone, because we're not really about seasteading as much as we are about freedom. And even though we are building a seastead, and this is a seasteading project, it's all about the freedom. If there was a country out there that would sell us their land and acknowledge us as an independent nation for cheaper, then we would definitely go for it. I mean, we don't really care where it is, as long as we can survive there, and as long as it's not more expensive.
Well, not
and right now,
survival. It's about having, land on your feet.
Yes, something underneath your feet, something you can live in. And right now, the outside exclusive economic zone is the only option, unless you want to live in Antarctica, and that will cost you a fortune for just surviving, and you won't really thrive much out there. And there's also Elon Musk is trying to do the same thing on Mars, and I wish him success.
Good luck in our lifetimes.
Yeah, and I think he'll do it, but the question is, how cheap will it be, and will it be
worth?
How much freedom will you?
Yeah, exactly. If actual survival takes 90%, like literally survival, right? Like before we had all this that I have behind me, 90% of your life was hunting, right? If I have to do this for 90% of my life, I mean, sure, it will be rewarding, I assume, hunter-gatherer style. I think it would be rewarding, but I like my life right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Although I'd like to have a lot more freedoms. I'd be willing to live in a smaller space if I have all the freedoms I'm looking for. And that's what the Freedom Project presents. The Freedom Project is basically the cost of a square foot is kind of like living in a big city. So it's expensive, but you can live in a smaller space and you can optimize it. Now, the concrete platforms that we were looking at might be maybe a quarter of that cost. And it has potential for being much cheaper, but it hasn't been done before. So we'll have to see if that's even viable. So either way, it'll be at the price of the main vessel or cheaper. But outside the exclusive economic zones, you can have all your freedoms.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. We have someone on the chat. Thank you, James Young, for asking. He's asking, where would the location be?
Right. Currently, we're thinking the South Bay of Bengal in India, but it can be anywhere. It's a floating structure. So if there's any place that becomes more desirable, or one place becomes more hostile to us, then we can always move. But the Bay of Bengal, the what's attractive about it is it's in one of the busiest trade routes in the world. Like 70% of all the trade in the world goes through this port, if I remember that number correctly. And so it'd be easier for us to buy our things from Amazon or trade with other countries because we're on that trade route anyways. And so it wouldn't cost that much for the container ships that go by to basically take an extra hour out of their trip to stop at our port and trade with us and then go on their way. And you can still buy stuff from Amazon and so forth. Also, the exclusive economic zone is defined in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and that was signed by 90-some-odd% of the countries in the world. But one country that did not sign it, even though they claim they uphold it, they haven't literally signed it, which means at any point they can stop abiding by it, is the United States of America.
Oh wow!
So we have a map on our website where you can see it, and almost all the countries in the world agree with the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, but the United States has not signed it. So if we park outside of California, which honestly, right outside of California would probably be the most desirable place otherwise, because you have people who have a high cost of living, who want to have cheaper living offshore and want to have more freedom. So you can do a 200 nautical mile commute to your work, have a plane that goes in and out, whatever, and live there on the weekends or whatever you want. It'd be a nice, or you want to have a cheaper healthcare, you can go offshore and do it there. But if U.S. ever decided that any of the corrupt politicians that run the government decided that they didn't like us, they could just tell the Navy to go out there and take over the vessel. Because technically speaking, the U.S. has not signed any treaties saying that they would not do that. The other countries in the world have, but U.S. has not. So another nice thing about the Bay of Bengal is that it is almost the opposite side of the world from the U.S. So hopefully, we'll be far enough that they would leave us alone.
Well, sounds like a plan. Well, that looks like a good answer to me. Now, let's talk about the thing that we left in the middle. As I said, between that 2014 and 2018 presentation on PorcFest, at least some people were made aware of the seasteading project/S, right?
Yes.
Because there were many projects going on. So,
yes.
What do you think you can add with this endeavor on going to Perfect this year and making pancakes? What do you think you can add, given that some people are aware of the project?
Well, a number of people there probably are aware of it. In fact, actually, there might be some people there that actually know about Freedom Haven. We're not competing with Seasteading Institute. We're just another project that is implementing what Seasteading Institute is promoting. So we're basically building off of that presentation that Seasteading Institute provided, and we're very grateful for what they've done and what they continue to do. And they are a great ally in our efforts, and we hope that they do another presentation again in the future, because they promote the concept that we are looking to deliver. And we can talk specifically how we expect to do that. Another thing that sets us Freedom Haven apart is not only our location, and we plan to be outside the exclusive economic zone where actual freedom exists. The other one is that our current plan, the New Liberty vessel, is basically building off of when our project started 4 years ago. We went all over the place design-wise and figure out, what if we did it this way, what if we did it that way, and we tested out different designs and went with different kinds of prototypes and tried a couple different things. And when it came down to it, all those designs were too expensive or too heavy. My favorite one was this huge concrete platform, and it was really cool, and it had all this. It could sustain itself and float even if it was cut in half and whatever, because it was all foam underneath and so forth. But it ended up costing like 3 times what we were looking for. And it was very heavy, so you wouldn't be able to carry as much weight. So at the end of the day, we ended up coming full circle and coming back to the vessels that are being built today. The mega ships that you see out on the ocean right now today are there for a reason. It makes the most economic sense. They solve the problem better than all the other designs that we've seen so far, and there's a reason for that. And so that's kind of why we went full circle. And our mega ship will look very similar to the aircraft carrier, cruise ships, container ships. They all have the same general monohull design, except that we will actually have an outrigger for support. But it's the same general concept, and we're basically going with that. And there's a reason for that.
Oh, okay. That looks most interesting. Now, what else do we have in store? So we got the PorcFest out. We talked about the flag. Oh my god! There was another thing we would discuss. Where is it? Give me a moment. Was it?
James, do you have any other questions for us?
Yeah, please ask away. Now, right. So can I ask you another thing?
Sure.
We talked about a bit the other day about the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we talked about the case of death, but
Yes.
I'm not sure if you fixed it, Tony. We had some hypothetical questions uh, between me and Tony. I'm not sure
They were
if you
very
would be
good
able to
questions.
discuss it.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
I can summarize that if you want,
yeah, okay, go ahead.
or you can lead. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So I asked Tony, let's suppose that you live on a container ship, you eventually get old, and unfortunately you die in your container,
Mhm.
and then it reeks after 1 to 3 days. Let's assume that you don't have relatives, or or not have relatives, but you know they haven't called you or anything. And what happens? What happens to your property in this particular case? Because obviously it's going to smell, a decomposing body inside your container. Therefore, are your neighbors allowed to enter your property, maybe take you out? Then who has to pay for your disposal? Or what exactly happens to your property post death? Because obviously you're no longer a moral agent. So what happens in this case?
And that's a very
So
good question.
yeah.
That's something that we actually don't have in place yet. For the every vessel will need to treat it their own way and have their own process of how to deal with that. But by default, property doesn't pass on. Like for example, if you're a murderer and you kill someone, or you kidnap or steal or whatever it is, and fix the problem, and you end up getting banished from Freedom Haven,
Mm.
because that we don't have any long-term prisons, and that's essentially what happens if you can't fix what you've broken, you end up getting banished.
Okay,
What
let me
happens to
stop
your
you
property?
right there. One
Yeah.
question. Couldn't nations go after us for actually exporting criminals? Let's say if we banish them, doesn't that mean we export criminals? Or how would that work?
Well, in Freedom, again, every vessel will handle this their own way. But in New Liberty specifically, you cannot enter New Liberty unless you've shown evidence that you have preparations, reservations made to be able to go back where you came from. Which means that going to New Liberty is always going to be a two-way trip. Even if you never leave New Liberty and stay there forever, you always have that return ticket to prove that you can go back to where you came from. Which means that when you leave New Liberty for whatever reason, voluntary or you get kicked out or whatever it is, you're not stranded. You already have the return trip planned. We think that banishment insurance will probably be really big because it's hard to hold on to a return ticket, for 10 years. So instead, you'll probably pay some company, and they'll guarantee that if you ever need to leave, if you want to leave or get kicked out or whatever it is, if you choose to leave, they will guarantee you passage back to whatever this destination is, and you can pay for nicer insurance. And they'll do it. They'll go home in luxury, or cheaper insurance, and you'll go home as the cheapest way possible.
Yeah.
And you decide. But basically, you can't come
They,
into New Liberty unless
they
that's
leave
been
you
taken care
halfway.
of.
You have to swim the rest.
But
They leave you halfway, and then you have to swim the rest.
no. That wouldn't qualify.
Yeah.
So basically, you cannot come into New Liberty without that being taken care of. So if you end up getting kicked out, or if you leave voluntarily, basically you always have the option. No one is ever stranded. No one is ever isolated. And if someone is a murderer and ends up coming aboard, they can still be exported. And that's all taken care of before they. Yeah. But what would happen to property if property by default doesn't change hands to anybody? Even if you end up being banished, it's still your property. Even if, for example, if some item. There's no civil forfeiture in America. If a product, a piece of property is accused of being a witness of a crime, the U.S. government claims authority, which they don't actually have, but they do it anyways. They claim authority to take your property away, and they do it all the time.
Camera, right? Like camera footage, like camera footage, correct?
No, not even just that. Like your car or your house.
Car?
Yeah, or a house. If someone comes into your house and they're doing drugs in your house, and now there's a court. That person is arrested for doing drugs, but your house is now seen as a witness to that crime, and it is taken under custody, which basically means they seize your house, they sell your house, keep the profits, and you can petition that. You can say, whoa, wait a second, the house didn't have anything to do with it. No one knew that this was happening. It doesn't matter. And you can try it, and you're basically trying to get the system to say, don't take my house, but the system's going to make $50,000 to $100,000, $1 million off selling your house. So why would they listen to you? And so it's very difficult to have it happen. Plus, the turnaround is so fast and they sell it so quickly. Basically, it's civil forfeiture. It's terrible. Yeah. USA has a problem with that. There's no civil forfeiture in Freedom Haven. It doesn't matter what. If the person committed a crime, then the person can fix their crime. But their property has nothing to do with it. The property still belongs to that person, regardless of what happens. So if the person dies, it's the same way. So
sorry. I'm cutting you. I thought you were done.
In New Liberty, basically, it's a good point you brought up before. We would need to, when you come in and make the contract, you'd have to specify at that time what would happen to your property at the time if you died or something else happens to you. So you'd have to specify that ahead of time, a living will, basically.
Yeah. Well, your property can still be expropriated if you do something particularly terrible, I assume. But that's up for the courts to, to decide.
That's civil forfeiture.
Yeah.
That's civil forfeiture. There would be no expropriation.
No, what I'm saying is with expropriation, let's say you kill someone or, you do some very bad things and, any reparations. That's what I mean for reparation purposes.
Got it.
Yeah.
To try to fix it. Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I was referring to that. Now that we got so the case of death, so I assume that you would have some relatives, like a list of relatives that could arrange what happens to the property. Okay, now for the tricky questions, scavenger rights. We actually discussed that too. Because there's actually two scavenger rights that we discussed, but first of all is if the new Liberty vessel somehow goes under, I don't know, a catastrophic failure of some sorts, what happens to scavenger rights? Would you like to explain what happens in that case, Tony? Or what it is first. First of all, let's discuss what exactly it is, because that's a bit ship terminology.
There is a common understanding in the world of scavenger. If you find something no one else lays claim to it, then it's yours. Freedom Haven itself doesn't acknowledge any of that. Freedom Haven basically says something is your property if you're able to make the best claim to that property, and that's kind of vague. But that's basically you have to. That's why it's going to be good to have a documented history of who owned what and who passed on the property to what and whatever, so that it doesn't become an issue. But if you find something somewhere and no one else can make claim to that property, then you're making the best claim for that property. But if the property's previous owner comes along and they say, I was a previous owner, it's actually my property, and they make the higher claim, then what may happen in that situation is that you may lose that property because that person says, well, actually it's mine. So if you scavenge a vessel in Freedom Haven that sunk or whatever, and you get all this stuff out, if people find out, oh, but that's actually mine, or this one's here and I can prove it, whatever it is, then it belongs to them. It goes back to them. You don't, the title does not get transferred. So all you're basically doing scavenging is playing on a very blurry area where we don't know who it belongs to yet, and you're making a claim and no one can can claim otherwise. So you have it in the meantime, but really it's kind of shaky ground, because as soon as someone comes along that makes a better claim to it, if it's actually theirs from before, then they'll get it back.
Yeah.
There's no transfer of title, assumed transfer of title. Governments love to basically say, "Oh, in this situation, then we get it. In this situation, we get it." But no, your property is your property, and it stays your property forever. Government doesn't get to come take it away.
I actually thought you were about to state the second. This is the second case of scavenger rights. That's why I referred to the catastrophic failure of the Liberty vessel. So get back to it. I was referring to the catastrophic failure. The ship is going down. I mean, not exactly not what happens, but let's say there is a Good Samaritan ship that is willing to help out. I was referring to that scavenger right. So it's up to you, Tony. I could explain it, but you're you're here to answer.
But tell us more about that situation. What would happen in that scenario specifically?
No,
the Samaritan ship comes by and
no. That I was referring to the scavenger rights. The fact that you can get 20% or something from the ship that you save because you helped out. No, you don't remember that?
I remember it now.
Okay.
If people want to sign up for something like that ahead of time and say, I want to have protection, and if you save me from drowning, then I will give you 20% the value of this. They can do that, and that will encourage people to want to help save you. There is also on the ocean today. There's a lot of socialism in the world today, and that basically means that people are entitled to get help if something happens, and they're entitled to have other people help them and give them everything they need. Helping people is a good thing. It's good to help people, but you're not entitled to have that help. It's always a blessing. It's always a benefit. It's always an awesome thing when people help you, because you can't expect it. Yeah. And on the ocean, that's the same thing, and that might make people want to say, I want to sign up for this. If I ever need help and someone comes by to help some, I will give them 20% value of whatever they salvage, because without that, people may not be willing to help. Or if they're helping, they're helping out of their own being a good Samaritan with nothing in return. People can figure it out for themselves in the free market, but don't automatically get to claim something because you did something. Unless the person agreed to it, there's no claim there.
Yeah. So that answers that question. All right. Now, we did answer that. Let's see. Do we have anything else, or do you think we could end for today? I'm not actually looking forward to ending this discussion because I quite enjoy it. But how much time has passed?
Newbies on YouTube.
Thanks, man.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Maybe a half hour? Not sure.
Yeah, looks like it. Okay.
I'm looking at the YouTube stream right here. That's it. It doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't say the actual time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still live, but it doesn't say how long it is.
All right. There's another question. I'm not sure if we answered it on our previous podcast. But why exactly a constitution? What was I mean, why are you calling it a constitution and not a contract? I know it sounds a bit is there a distinction?
For us, actually, they are kind of the same thing. You cannot enter Freedom Haven. You cannot enter the territorial waters. You are not welcome to enter the territorial waters unless you agree to keep the Constitution. And essentially, basically, unless you agree that you will not murder, you will not kidnap, and you will not steal, and those related items. For example, there are a couple of things like if I destroy your boat, that's considered theft. Some people say, well, you haven't actually taken their boat, you just destroyed the boat. Well, that's all kind of rolls in. That's all related. If you don't agree to those principles, then you're not welcome to actually come into the waters. And then in a sense, that's a contract. But the reason why we even have it written down is that people think that when there's a happy path, everything's happy, everything's great. But as soon as you have a disagreement, let's say for example that you and your neighbor disagree about something. Let's say your neighbor built a new car, and you're like, wow, that is awesome. And you watch your neighbor build a car, learn how to do it, and you built your own car. Now your neighbor believes that what he designed, what he built, is his property. He has that intellectual right to that property, and you may not build the same thing he built without his permission, without paying him money. But you don't believe that. You believe that you were able to learn and see and observe and act on it and do you yourself. Now, you and your neighbor disagree on this. Your neighbor believes that you've stolen his virtual property, and you don't. So your neighbor comes by and uses force, and he believes he's using defensive force. And you say, wait a second, you're attacking me. This is offensive force. And so you guys have a fight, and you guys don't agree. So then how do you resolve it?
Yeah.
You need to agree on these kind of principles ahead of time, because otherwise both of you guys will feel justified in that situation. You need to have the ground rules. You need to know what is property, what is murder. For example, some people will say that if you don't rescue somebody in the ocean, let's say that if you're going somewhere and a boat was sinking and you didn't go by to help those people and rescued, and some of them died because you're going somewhere else, then you are a murderer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a question. Are you or are you not? That's one of those things that the Constitution answers. And actually the Constitution says, no, you're not. You're not responsible. It is good to help people. Yeah. But they are not entitled to anybody else's service.
It's encouraged you help people, but exactly. You're
exactly
shouldn't be forced to
so you need a Constitution to define that. Otherwise you're going to have these kinds of arguments, and both will feel justified, and then they'll get bigger and bigger, and there'll be a battle, and then you'll end up with just the person with the biggest stick winning. And you don't want to have a system where the people with the biggest stick end up winning. You want a system where everyone agrees ahead of time and there's peace.
Well, I don't think we discussed it on the previous one, but couldn't there be a part of Freedom Haven that actually, let's say they have 5 containers at the bottom right? And they're kind of free-spirited individuals, and they decide to not abide by the Constitution. What happens? They declare, we won't abide by it. We'll do our own rules, right? So what happens in this particular case? Like, are you breaking a contract? What's going to happen to these guys?
Clarification real quick. The Freedom Haven is all kinds of vessels. You're talking specifically of the new Liberty. And that if they haven't broken the laws, if they've stated they don't plan on keeping the contract that they made when they came in, they're still on contract.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, until they've actually broken those rules, until they've murdered somebody, until they've kidnapped somebody, or they've stolen from somebody and they don't want to fix it, or they can't fix it.
Yeah.
They can say whatever they want, but they're under contract and they've said they're going to do it.
Yeah. Well,
if they want to leave, they can leave.
It's a small problem with actually threatening to not abide by something. If I point a gun at you and I threaten you, give me your money or I'll take your life. Obviously, you never had a choice in the matter. But no bullet was fired, so I didn't do anything.
Exactly.
And we both, this is kind of the same predicament.
Agreed.
You say you want to abide by it, but you never break it. So what should happen? Is this a breach of contract or not?
And that's going to be a very gray area for the courts to decide. If someone pulls a gun at you, and you have to convince the courts that he was going to shoot you, and that's going to be difficult, and it will be difficult. And yet, at the same time, you don't want to wait until after he shoots at you before you stop him.
Yeah.
so that is going to be a very difficult thing to do, and that's why we have courts to help figure that out. But you do bear the burden to prove that he was going to do something, and you shooting him first was justified in self-defense. I don't envy the courts for doing that, but it's no one gets a free pass. You don't get to use no one gets to use force on anyone they want to and just claim it was self-defense. You have to actually be able to prove why it was self-defense. Otherwise, you are the instigator. Yeah. Otherwise, any murderer, kidnapper, or thief out there would just say, "Hey, it was just self-defense," and that's okay. Oh, I was going to stop you, but you're shooting all these people in this school for self-defense, so obviously it was okay because you said it was self-defense. You get a free pass. No, that's not the way it works. You cannot use force unless you can prove that it was for self-defense.
Okay.
Not that would be easy to figure out or prove, but it's.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think that is enough for today. I think. Unfortunately, I don't have any more questions we could discuss. Though, let's see.
We're gonna have a lot more to discuss after PorcFest because there's so much going on in PorcFest.
Yeah,
so.
It's actually I'm looking forward to it. Not going to lie.
Me too.
Yeah, I think that's enough for today. Unless we get any question from our dear chat, which is looking quite dead. Not going to lie.
James came and he went.
Well,
thanks everyone. Thanks for watching.
All right. Yeah. I'll see you around, everyone.